I think I'm gonna hurt myself. So please help me. And it's one of the things that I try to preach as often as I can.
We as guys, when we are alone, we like to brag about stuff and stupid stuff. How much more when one of us says, "Hey, I've been to there." What we tend to do, we make that as a joke, and
internal conflict is something that you don't always understand.
We understood that if someone is mentally ill, it's either uthakathiwe, or it's either ubhema kakhulu, he smokes.
Right. And you keep praying here, and God is giving you space. That's why He's not answering your prayers.
That's
He's
really
just
funny.
giving you space from you.
Even love, even affection, into abelungu.
You're not going to be okay if you continue like this is you know what I mean? And if you look at it from a space of a relationship,
It is because if you're not taught to communicate your feelings, then how do you even communicate a boundary? Because it's really the same thing.
You are told that men don't cry, and
whether they are embarrassed, they feel angry. And they're sad, they feel angry.
Yes.
They are frustrated, they feel angry.
I've learned to adjust and learn to be more open about what I'm feeling as compared to.
It's better to cry in a Benz than to cry in a taxi. You know, I always say, I was like, yeah, fine, we are all crying, doesn't matter. Welcome to Thought-Provoking Conversations with Speak Your Truth Academy, a space where real stories, deep truths, and deep healing meet. Today, we're diving into a conversation that's long overdue but deeply necessary: mental health in the Black community. See, for generations, we've carried strength like armor. We've pushed through, we've survived, and we've made a way out of no way. But somewhere along the survival, many of us lost the space to feel, to grieve, to break, and to heal. In this episode, we are peeling back the layers: the stigma, the silence, the strong Black man, strong Black woman myth, and we are asking, what does wellness really look like for us? What wounds are we still carrying from the previous generation? And how do we break the cycle while still honoring our roots? This is not about shame in the Black community, it's about freedom. So if you've ever been told, pray it away, man up, deal with it, or keep it in the family, this conversation is for you. Let's talk, let's feel, and let's heal together. I am your host, Lihle Shongwe, and I am joined by three amazing panelists that will help us to peel the layers of today's topic. Panelists, I'm just going to ask you to please switch on your cameras and join me. And we can start by you. Okay, there's Lita. Okay, let's see who's next. Blondie, let's see, and then Kanye. Right, hi guys. Smile and wave. Smile and wave. Okay, so I'm just gonna ask you. I'm gonna ask you guys to just introduce yourselves. Who are you? Where you're based, and what do you do? Right. So we're gonna start with the thorn amongst roses, I guess. We'll start with you, the only guy.
Thanks for the invite in this evening. And my name is Kainsan, as you can see. I'm from Empangeni. That's where I grew up, in Okshili. I'm based here in Joburg. The reason that I came here was mainly because of job opportunities. They're much better this side. By profession, I'm a software engineer, and I've worked in banking and insurance companies. So currently, I'm still looking for one, and I'm also working on my personal projects. So I hope this will be a good exercise. And as it's a total new experience for me. So I've never been in such a setting, and I hope this is one of many to come as well.
Welcome, Kanye. Welcome. All right, we'll go with Shine. We'll go, Lita.
Hi everyone. Hi Lehle. I am Lita Kazi Mweni. I grew up in Witbank, moved to Joburg, worked, moved around quite a bit actually. And now I'm back in Witbank. I don't actually work in Witbank, I work in Pretoria, but the blessings of hybrid work means that you can kind of live where you want and travel to work. I am a international development consultant, and I mostly work within the climate change and just energy transition space. And I'm actually quite excited for today's conversation. I think there's a lot of people who, yeah, there's a lot to unpack that hasn't been unpacked for a while. So it should be interesting.
Hi, Lita. Thank you for joining us.
Bye
Yeah.
later.
All right, Lundi.
Hello, everybody. My name is Londi Vilagazi. I was born Gwanongoma. Pretty proud about that. And I think for today's conversation, what I want to share is that I live with a mental illness. I was diagnosed with a mental illness. I have a job, but I think I think it's important that I say that I have a diagnosis. I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 in 2020. And I'm really excited to speak about my own experiences and just share what I've seen, what I've learned, and what I hope will be helpful for others today. So that's pretty much for the sake of transparency. That's what I think I should share instead. So yeah, that's who I am.
Okay. No, thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. I think for me, if anything, I'm going to be learning quite a few things. Yeah, I'm gonna be learning quite a few. And one of the things that I like us also to just talk about is how our backgrounds affect where we are right now in terms of our mental health, right? But first of all, let's break the ice by you guys telling us what mental health is to you. We'll start with Kanye. What is mental health to you? And what does it mean for you?
I
Kanye?
meant
Yeah.
okay. On mental illness, I think it's when one is suffering internally with
Mm,
with his thoughts or her thoughts, and
mm,
also battling between anxiety and depression and the norms in society, and trying to balance all of that out and to making something that is meaningful. So, for instance, if the way we were taught mental illness from Elokshi, we
mm,
understood that if someone is mentally ill, it's either uthakathiwe, or
mm,
it's either ubhema kakhulu, he smokes a lot. It's either you bewitch
mm,
or smoke a lot or ufunda kakhulu. So
mm,
you usually centered around those things. So we never thought that it's something that's internal within your thoughts and how you perceive things. Is it real? Is it real, or is it not something that you just feel within yourself? So that's how I think of mental illness.
mm. Okay, that's quite interesting. Yes, actually, now that you actually say it, ne, we never grew up with the term mental illness, right? So whenever someone was battling with something, whether emotionally or mentally, it was just like, whatever it is that you are known for, gonna be like, it's because you do that too much. That's what's
We are
causing the
papa.
thing. We are papa,
Yeah,
basically, right? And that's
exactly.
another term. We are papa. There's no
Hmm.
such thing. Londi, what is it for you? What is mental illness to you?
Because I experienced it,
Mm,
there was no language for it. I just
mm,
knew, for me personally, because it 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 really, really, really like changed who I am as a person. I grew up as a
mm,
happy kid. I grew up Konongoma. It was, the rurals. We didn't have, we didn't know that we lacked, and everything was fine. We played as
mm,
kids, and that's what our life is. And then I was thrown into this other reality where it was just painful. It hurt. All I knew was this hurts. I don't
Mm,
understand why I'm sad. I don't
mm,
understand why I wake up with a heavy heart. I don't understand
mm,
why there's no reason why I'm feeling sad. I just feel sad. So that's what
mm,
mental health, or rather, I guess just mental issues are for me, where I didn't have the name for it. I just knew I felt it. And because I
mm,
lived in the environment that I lived in, there was
mm,
no definition for it. There was no reason why it's happening. It was either you do too much, or when I started self-harming, which is like fast forward to this conversation, when I was
mm,
self-harming, it was, oh, you're demonic. Satan
Mm.
is, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
for me
yeah,
personally, in my experience, it was just a pain that I didn't have a language for. It was a pain that I didn't
mm,
understand. It was a pain where I didn't know where it came from or why. I didn't know
yeah,
why I was the way I am. So
yeah.
that's pretty much how I define it before I knew what it is. Yeah.
And like, now that you're putting it like that, you don't know what it is that you are feeling and why you are feeling that way. That became,
Yeah.
obviously, if you don't know something, it becomes very difficult for you to manage it or to balance it, right?
Yeah. And to
So
know what to
never
do
really,
with it.
yeah, I've never really thought about it like that. Say that may like most of the time it's caused by, and maybe it's also like growth pains, right? Where
Yeah,
you are
yeah, yeah.
growing and you are feeling certain things and you are new to a certain experience and you just don't know how to feel and how to, balance
Mm.
your experience and your new experiences also. So that's quite
Your
interesting and
emotions.
insightful. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. Lita,
You don't know.
what is, yeah, go for it, go for it.
No, no, I was just saying that the thing about mental health is that when there's no language for it, when no one around you is speaking about it, when there's no name
Mm,
for what's going on in your mind, you're
mm,
just feeling things. You're just feeling
mm,
things, and the world is like, no, don't think about it too
mm,
much. Or people are like, no, just be happy. Like, why are
mm.
you sad? Like, why would you
Mm.
cut yourself, dude? Like,
Yeah.
you have friends. There's Lisha around. You guys seem
Mm,
happy all the time. Why
mm,
would you say that you're not okay? So it's just
mm.
a thing that in the Black community, there's just
Right,
no language.
right. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Lita?
Um, so I think I have a different perspective slightly, and not that I disagree with any of the other panelists, but just that I had the privilege of being exposed to kind of the conversations around mental health from a young age.
Mm,
So my dad died when I was about 9, and at that time, my mom immediately kind of took us to a therapist to get someone to help us deal with those emotions. Um, but I definitely do agree that as much as you have like external help, or you might have people to talk to, that internal
mm,
conflict is something that you don't always understand.
mm,
And I think then if you understand that the baseline of mental health is an ability to kind of self-regulate. It's not that you necessarily have control of your emotions, so to speak, because it's like if something happens, then it throws you off. And I think
yeah.
that happens to everyone. It's not that
Mm,
it's like, no, nothing throws me off. But I think it's
mm,
that ability to recalibrate yourself or bring yourself back. And I
mm,
think often when people are struggling with mental health, and myself included, because I have struggled, I've had a very long journey with my own mental health. I think
mm,
that the thing is that you're unable to kind of pull yourself out of it. I think, Londi, where you mentioned it quite a bit, people will ask you, no, man, just be happy, just don't be anxious. And it's like, well, if I
mm.
could, I
I
would just
wish.
do it, but I can't.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I think often what we don't realize, and I remember one of my doctors saying, is like, if you can't see and you wear your glasses, like you're not like, oh, I've been wearing my glasses for a while. I don't need help with like my sight anymore. But the thing
Mm,
that we struggle with mental health is that we don't realize that it's a chemical imbalance in your brain.
mm,
It's something
Yes.
that you need. Sometimes you need sort of medication for it so that you can fix that
mm,
chemical imbalance. But it also, I think, sort of stems from the environment that you're in, that you grew up in. So there's kind of that managing your coping skills, and giving yourself the tools to manage yourself, but then
mm,
also sort of managing your environment. the people around you, the support systems that you have, so that you're in a better position to kind of seek that support that you need. But I think often we don't realize that there's something underlying that, like, because you can't see it. It's not like, when
Yeah.
someone, like with your glasses, you can see
Yeah.
I'm
Or
struggling
an
with my
injury.
eyesight, or an injury, or someone is kind of like limping or has a broken leg. It's something that you can see, and it's a pain that you can understand because it's tangible. But we
Right.
can't see the
Okay.
chemicals in our brains. And
Yeah.
so it's difficult to kind of pinpoint and be like, oh, well, that, because what is a chemical imbalance? You can't see it with your eyes. And so,
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, it's
And
difficult to
sometimes
hold space
it
for
feels like we made it
people.
up.
That's true. That's true. But I also feel like I think it feels like we've made it up for on two levels. One, for the person who's experiencing it, because we
Mm.
don't talk enough about it. And
Mm.
so there's
Mm.
no context, or there's nothing that you can pull from to say, like, no, this experience that we talk about as a society, I'm struggling with, because we never talk about it. But then also
Mm.
for the other people, like, if you're not experiencing it and you're not in it and we're not talking about it, it's not something that you even know how to hold space for, because it's not
Mm.
something that we've built a culture around holding space for.
Yeah.
And I think particularly, sadly, among the Black community, not even because, I mean, I think that, like, just given our context and our developmental context, there's just
Mm.
some things that haven't been allowed. If you're
Yeah.
Mm.
struggling, for instance, with apartheid and kind of fighting for your freedom from that sense, you're not really thinking about the
Mm.
psychosocial element of that and the mental health
Mm.
elements of that.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
I often think that, especially in the context of South Africa, but also in the whole continent, because it has kind of
Mm.
gone through the whole colonization, and there's a deep violence that comes
Mm.
with that. Those
Mm.
elements of our oppression and the impact that it's had on sort of like a whole culture and a whole generation, it's actually
Yeah.
Mm.
multiple generations, has not
Mm.
been addressed. And so it's just kind of something that we're passing on and passing on and
Mm.
passing on. And I think we're maybe the first generation to really stop and say, wait, we're
Mm.
not okay and we need to address
Yeah.
Mm.
it.
Something is
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell me, I think Lita, you've mentioned that particularly in South Africa, because our parents were fighting for freedom and all of that. That might have been like the reason why it was a taboo. Like they're not we don't really care about your social life. I mean, yeah, we don't care about your social life. We don't care about your emotions right now. There are bigger things for us to fight. And so whatever it is that you're feeling, figure it out by yourself, right? And obviously that became like a generational thing where yes, we are the first generation to like address it, but we also still went through a phase where we were told we don't want to hear about your emotions. And why do you think it was such a taboo, apart from the fact that our parents were fighting bigger battles? But why do you guys think it was such a taboo where we're at home now and I'm telling you that I'm not okay, and we are not fighting for freedom in the house? We are sitting together as a family. Why is it then that I cannot express what I'm going through right now? Why is it shunned upon that I don't understand how I'm feeling, or I'm sad and I don't know why? Why is it such a taboo in the Black community, particularly? Londi, you can
Um,
answer that for us. Yeah.
I think the first thing is that for a long time, feelings and emotions, even love, even affection, into
Mm.
abelung. Like
Yes.
the whole thing of feeling, the whole thing of showing feelings is not our thing. We've got other things that we do. We've got other ways that we function. We've got other
Mm.
things that we have to worry about. And mainly the things that I already mentioned, the struggle, the fact that people are hungry. Like we don't have time
Mm.
to sit down and talk about, oh, that kid at school shouldn't have spoken to you this way,
Mm.
or somebody shouldn't have addressed you a certain way. It's like
Mm.
that was seen as a weakness. Like, how can you
Mm.
allow somebody to ruin your whole day? So it's like
Yeah.
showing
Yeah.
emotion. Showing emotion is a shameful thing, and I think it's still going on
Mm.
today. It's like if you love, if you are kind, you're weak.
Mm.
People are
Yeah.
still fighting. People still don't get a chance to actually be their true selves and be kind and be affectionate and be considerate and all these things that I think are important for just our existence, because it's like there's no time for that. We've got other things, whether it's economical things where it's like we care about in relationships, we care about if as a woman and you're straight, a man does he have money? You don't think about is he kind, is he considerate, is does
Yes.
he treat me like a human? Those things are like at the back. So I think it's like engraved in us to care more about all the things that society deems worthy of our time than actually tapping in and being like, hey, how do you feel? Do you like this person? Do they like you? Treat you well? Do they make you feel safe? Do they make you feel seen and understood? Do they hold space for you? Those things are not things that are spoken about. I think there are priorities about us where it's like there are other things that there's no room for, because we're worried about hunger, we're worried about
Yeah.
whether or not I'm gonna make it, we're worried about at work, I'm worried about does my boss like me, who's behind do I kiss to get ahead. It's not about is this environment healthy for me? Do I want to be here? Do these people deserve me? Those questions are not questions we ask. I think most of how we are is driven by mostly our needs for survival more than just needs as human beings. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because when we were growing up, right, they'll tell you, Melufunde, get a nice
Yeah.
job, get a house, they're telling you things like functional things outside of your emotional and mental health, right? And so we grow up as those soldiers who are just like, as in, I need to work hard. I need, whether
Yeah.
now you are emotionally imbalanced or mentally, it doesn't matter. I must still go and work hard, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
with that being said, Kanye, how does this whole mental health journey for you, just coming from that kind of background as Black people, how has that shaped who you are today? And is it helping you? Are you functioning well, or are you finding yourself having to readjust your life compared to what you were taught?
So, I think it takes a lot of adjusting. For instance, for the fact that most of the way we behave, it has to do with societal norms or cultural norms. For instance, in the Daikan, you are told that men don't cry, and you are told to man up. So each and everything, so you bottle everything inside, and there's nowhere where you're going to let all of those things out. And by the time when it starts to show, it's a bit too late. Hence, if you ever notice that we only talk about mental illness in Black communities at extremes, we don't talk about it at it. We only talk about it when it's starting to show. For instance, if I can make it a simple analogy, there's this other guy, Unjabul. That guy lost his wife, lost his child, and lost his job. Almost he lost everything. And with time, when time goes by, and he started to behave funny and say things, and we just laughed about that. And when he started walking around the street and picking up papers, that's when we started to notice, oh, we are saying, but we didn't even look at all of these things that have happened to him in the past. So taking back that to my situation. So based on the experiences, for instance, there are a lot of contributors to mental illness, and you have to learn to adjust. For instance, it took me time to learn how to talk about how I feel. And I'm a type of person like you have to peel now and then to get to the bottom of what is it that I'm having trouble with. So, and I'm not saying that I've mastered it as of now, but it's still a journey. And it's something that usually most of, especially if you're a guy, based on what I said earlier, that's in the guy. And based on the past failures and some of the things that I occurred just because of what I was feeling and couldn't act appropriately, just because I didn't understand what was it. I've learned to adjust and learn to be more open about what I'm feeling as compared to 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 to, to the past.
So
Yeah.
as we're talking about feelings, right, and like learning how to express your feelings, and Lita, growing up, what would you say you were taught either explicitly or silently about emotions?
Mm.
Just in your community, in the Black community, or just at home? Like, what were
Uh,
you taught explicitly, or just, or just silently? Because we were all taught something, and most of it is very
Yeah.
silent, very silent.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
Mm.
most of it is kind of silence yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and it's funny because it's like it's in small things and it's in big things. It's in like when the big things, if something really big happens, you kind of just have to move on.
Yeah.
Life
Mm.
happens, move on.
Mm.
But
Mm.
even
Yeah.
in the small things, ah, you made me happy. I mean, you made me angry when you did this. Ah, you're so sensitive. I think
Mm.
there's this kind of constant sort
Mm.
of reiteration of like you're not allowed to have feelings,
Feel.
and I think it ultimately then boils up to you're not allowed to have boundaries, because then I think people
Mm.
sort of struggle with those boundaries, because if you're not taught to communicate your feelings, then how do
Mm.
you even communicate a boundary? Because it's really the same thing. And I
Yeah.
do think sometimes that it's not necessarily just like a verbalized thing.
Mm.
Um, it's like, yes, you're reprimanded or you're kind of shunned or shamed for being
Mm.
overly emotional, but you also
Yeah.
just like
Mm.
observe what is tolerated in adults or how
Mm.
they tend to behave. Like if they're unhappy, you can see they're unhappy, but you can see they're saying nothing. And I think as a child, you take a cue from or cues from that.
Mm.
That's
Um,
true.
yeah,
Mm.
so I think it's kind of mostly been that, but in recent years, I'm learning to one, find the language, because I really think it's
Mm.
about learning to articulate yourself, and it's an
Yeah.
actual language thing. You have to have the words for the feelings that you have, which I
Yeah.
think that if you're not taught to express it, you like you grow up not even knowing, am I sad? Or you're just like, I am sad, but is it really sadness? Is it more
Yeah.
shame? Or is it
Mm.
that you're embarrassed? And
Mm.
kind of like there's this whole spectrum of emotions that we don't
Mm.
even have the language for. And so if you can't even
Mm.
articulate it to yourself, how
Mm.
are you even going to start articulating it to other people and then managing your mental health?
Yeah.
Mm.
But I definitely agree that I think silence was the biggest message. And I don't just see it within my own family, I see it within a lot of families.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I think the onus is on us then as we grow up to then learn the language of
Mm.
Yeah.
emotions so that we
Mm.
can kind of liberate us. Because I mean, honestly, once you articulate something and you know what it is, it's easier to let go of, oh, okay, I'm sad.
Yep.
Mm.
And you can feel your
Yep.
feelings and you can let it go.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
when you're kind of stuck in this kind of, oh, I feel a tornado of emotions, but I
Mm.
don't really know what it is, you
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
overwhelmed and caught up in that.
Mm.
I
Mm.
often, sorry to cut you, but I often witness that even in conversation about specifically men and
Mm.
how men, like Kanye was saying, indoda ikhali,
Mm.
and men don't have the words and the language for
Mm.
exactly how they feel. Whether they are embarrassed, they feel angry, and they're sad, they feel
Yeah.
angry.
They
Yes.
feel
They're
angry.
frustrated, they feel angry. It's just
Mm.
always
Mm.
sort of like the same emotion, because that's like the only emotion a man is supposed to feel, because
Mm.
anything else is too soft, anything else
Mm.
is too
Too
feminine,
weak. Yeah.
anything else is weak, right?
Mm.
And so it's
Mm.
like I can't just say, hey, please hold me. I feel
Mm.
alone
Mm,
today. I
mm,
feel
Mm.
unseen today. I feel
Mm.
misunderstood today. They can't
Mm.
really say the exact words or the exact
Mm.
thing that they're feeling, because society has made them feel like everything else is too weak for you to
Mm.
express. The only thing that makes you macho and strong
Mm.
is, I just
Mm.
feel mad. I'm angry. And,
Mm.
and and I think that's contributed to a lot of really sad and toxic and unhealthy ways of expressing, specifically for men in our
Mm.
community, where they're not
I
allowed
mean,
to be human.
Mm. Mm.
I
Yeah.
would probably go as far as saying it's a huge contributor to the sort of state of gender-based violence that we have
Yeah.
in
Yep.
South Africa
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Because if you don't
Yeah.
feel like you have a healthy way to
Mm.
express your feelings, and the only feeling that you feel that you can feel is anger, then
Mm.
Yeah.
that's kind of how you're going to go around doing
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting, if I can maybe take us a step back to kind of
Mm.
the silence, the only being kind of allowed to be macho. There's
Mm.
this interesting book by a lady called Dr. Joy DeGruy. I think she's
Mm. Mm.
an American researcher, and she's written a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome.
Mm.
Um, and what she talks about, I remember listening to one of the interviews she did. She mentioned that, like, if I am a slave and I have my child, I like, it is unsafe for them to be vulnerable. It literally is unsafe for you to be weak, for you to be
Okay.
overly emotional. It
Yeah.
Mm.
literally is not something that's going to work for you. And so you kind of beat the vulnerability out of a child, and you kind of then
Mm.
have this very stoic, and maybe stoic isn't the right word, but like you have this very stoic kind of hard person. And I think
Mm.
Yeah.
that like, although the her book is largely focused on the American context, I think that when we look at the general African and colonized context, I think that's something that speaks to us all, and even in South Africa. Um,
Yeah.
where it
Mm.
has been unsafe just because of the oppressive system that exists for anyone to be vulnerable. And so,
Mm.
what our communities would do is to harden us so that it is safer for us in the world that we live in. But then I also
Yeah.
think that there's kind of like this deep disconnect from our own cultures. We don't know what, like, our approach to dealing with mental health was before
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
were colonized. And it's not to say that we've never had that as a community. I think we've just had
Mm.
this kind of lost history and this lost language, because even I hate to kind of be that person who's like, it's the patriarchy, it's the
Mm.
colonization. But I really
It
do
is.
think that it
Yeah.
really
Ah,
shifted our culture
It is.
significantly.
Yeah.
Even the fact that we've kind of been disconnected from our languages means that we don't even
Mm.
have the words
Mm.
within our own language, and we don't even have the culture of dealing with mental health in our own context. And I think it's very sad, and kind of like we have to go back to the foundations and figure out what works for our
Mm.
Yeah.
communities to express
Mm.
ourselves. Um,
Yeah.
and
I,
then learn to do it, and then remove the shame from it,
The
because that's the
shame.
Mm.
thing
mm.
that is
The
just holding
shame.
us back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oof.
I think
And
another thing that has been a growing trend, it's where we delegate issues with mental illness to the supernatural. For instance, if ever we probably you suffering from mental illness, someone said no, you are bewitched, or else we say no, nabadala, go to a sangoma or something like that.
Yeah.
mm.
So I think that's
Or
one of the things that you know much.
namadimoni.
Yeah, and I bet you
Mm.
namadimoni, for instance.
Mm.
And that has been another issue. I think when Alitaga specified that how we used to deal with that, I
Mm.
think that that's the way they have defined it. If ever someone is mentally ill, there's some
Mm.
issue with his spiritual journey or anything like that.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
either he's bewitched or nabadala or he needs, but not going to the extent of addressing the issues that they're
Mm.
currently
The
facing.
actual issues.
Mm.
Mm. Mm.
That's
Sure.
true.
That's deep, hey? So tell me, what would you guys say are like signals, right? Or behavioral patterns that signify that, okay, this one has some emotional suppression, right? So in our community, particularly, like there's that perhaps a certain way in which a person who has suppressed their emotions
Yeah.
behave, or there are certain phrases that they use, where you
Yeah.
now pick it up that okay, this one is suppressing a certain emotion. Londi, what would you
Yeah.
say those phrases and those behaviors are?
To be completely honest, I think that it would be so much more helpful for all of us as humankind from
Mm,
whatever walks of life, because as South Africans, we have our own specific issues, and every
yes.
other human has their own issues. I think
Mm.
the first thing that I think everybody needs to be aware of is everybody has their own traumas. No
Mm.
matter who you are, no matter how much you have, no matter how much, because sometimes as Black people, because we lack a lot, we
Mm.
look at people who we think have things and have money and maybe have whatever, and we say, yeah, why would you have problems? You have stuff. I
Yes.
think I
Yes.
think, yeah, like, but you
Yes.
have money, like, oh, you
Mm.
crying in a Benz, so it's
Mm.
whatever, right? And it's like,
Can I catch you there, ne? But
yeah,
it's better to cry in a Benz than to cry in a taxi. You know, I
and
always
that's
say,
a
I was
lie.
like, yeah, fine, we are all crying. Doesn't
It's a
matter.
lie.
We are all
Tears are
crying.
tears, my bro. Tears are
Yeah.
tears. And so
Yeah.
I think every time I encounter a human and they project a certain pain, whether it's by
Mm.
judging me or
Mm.
by speaking in a way that you can tell this isn't this no one who's healthy and happy with themselves and their lives will speak
Mm.
in this way. You know, like,
Mm.
you realize that people are hurt. People
Mm.
have traumas, and maybe because often we think traumas are like being raped or being burnt alive or all these
Mm.
big things. Sometimes trauma comes from, I'm a dark-skinned woman. I don't know if this lighting is allowing for that to show, but I'm a
Yeah.
dark-skinned person and I grew up very, very dark. And
Mm.
I was told growing up, my mom is a pretty yellow bone. And I
Mm.
was told, yeah, she kind of looks like her mom, but she's so dark. And
Mm.
that broke me. I grew up thinking I'm not beautiful, thinking that
Mm.
I'm not good enough, thinking that I'm not worthy. And
Mm.
you may look at that as just another thing, but it's a real life trauma that alters
Mm.
who you are as a human being. So I think
Right,
that
right.
people have experienced pains in different
Mm.
spheres and different degrees. But I think that human beings have been hurt, and you
Mm.
see it in the way they interact, you see it in the
Mm.
way they relate, you see
Mm.
it in the way they show up, you see in the
Mm.
way they love or not
Mm.
love. So
Mm.
it's like no one is really exempt from the human experience. No one is
Mm.
really, no one is okay. Okay,
Mm.
even though we would rather not believe
Okay.
that, but no
Mm.
one is okay. No one is really all the way healthy. And I think
Yeah.
it would be so helpful if we're all aware of the fact that we all have things that we need to work on. We can
Mm.
say, oh, if a person from this type of place speaks this type of way, but the truth
Mm.
is, all human beings have experienced some type of pain, and
Yes,
all
some type
human
of
beings,
trauma. Yes.
exactly, so
Yeah.
some type of trauma, and
Yeah.
all human beings need to be
Mm.
honest about that, need to be open about that, need to be real
Mm.
about that, need to tap in and say, what is it about me that needs some work? What is it about
Right.
me that needs me to pay attention? What is it
Mm.
about the patterns that I repeat in my life
Mm.
actually
Mm.
mean that I need to work on something? So I don't think it's like a thing that's specific to a certain demographic. I think
Mm.
it's a human issue. It's a human thing.
Mm.
All human beings need to be real about,
Mm.
hey, dude, you've experienced pain in whatever
Yeah.
capacity, no matter
Right.
how small it
Right.
may seem. Because another thing we do is, my pain is more painful than yours.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't know the things I've
Actually,
been through.
yes.
You don't know the
Yes.
things I've been through. You don't know the things
Yes.
I've experienced. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I feel you, but
I'm
everybody's
hurting
gone
too.
exactly,
Yeah.
and there is no measure of pain.
Right.
Singakuzuga so too. We can
Mm.
stub our toes at the same
Mm.
time at the same
Mm.
spot. But I
Mm.
can't say your pain is smaller than my pain. So it's
Mm.
like you can't really measure and say, oh, that person shows their pain in this way because they are far worse. All
Yeah.
of us need all of us need to have these conversations. All of us need to figure out a way to be better and heal.
Mm.
That's what I think.
Yeah. You know, For me, one thing that is very prominent in the Black community, ne, is
Yeah.
judgment. That's like the
Ooh.
biggest sign of emotional
Yep.
suppression, right?
Yeah.
Is like you said, that when a person says things that are out of line, it's just a reflection of how they feel, right?
Yep.
And perhaps your presence, or you said something that triggered them to,
Yeah.
now express that emotion that was suppressed
And
for so
react.
long, right? And the thing about emotions is that when they're not expressed on time, they come out in like very evil ways later on.
Yeah.
Very,
Mm.
very evil
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
So you can make me angry right now, but if I don't tell you right now and I harbor to that anger, I'm not gonna tell you
Somebody
later on
else
and
would do
say,
something similar and you would go crazy.
yes, I'll go
Mm.
crazy, right? I'll just
Yeah.
slap you and you'll do something really, really small and I'll slap you. But that's just, now manifestation of all that incubated anger, if I can put it that way, you know?
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to talk about, I mean, I think we spoke about, if you express your emotions, then you're weak. Let's talk about why do we think that going to therapy is weak in the Black community? I know, Lita, you've been in therapy. I know, Londi, you're in therapy.
Mm.
Kanye, you need to get therapy if you're not in therapy.
I've been to, by the way. No,
Okay,
I've
but
been
but
to when I live.
you've
So
been. Oh, hey,
yeah.
you see, we're coming along, guys. We're coming along nicely, right?
Yeah.
We're coming along nicely. So can you tell me, why would you think that, especially with men? I know when you start talking about counseling with men, it's like they shrug such things off, like, yeah, I don't need counseling, I'm fine. Why is it seen as a weakness in the Black community?
It comes from what you've been speaking about, that the social
Yeah.
norms and the cultural norms, where we
But I
believe
mean, I
that
mean, I mean, think about it. Think about it like this, right? So we've been talking about mental illness since lockdown, right? I think that's when
mm,
everybody now came into like
Yeah.
good understanding of it, right? It's been what, 5 years now, ne? And a lot of people are now acquainted to it, including men, but they're still shrugging off going to
but
therapy. Why is
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah, but 5 years, it's a short period of time. Being told all
Okay.
of your life that
Yes.
you need to man
True.
up, you need to be strong.
Mm,
So it's something that we still need to get used to.
mm,
Even admitting to that when there's still an issue with some of
mm.
the guys, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I
Yes.
think
Yes.
the main reason it's still the cultural norms. How I grew up like
Mm,
this. This is the
mm,
way I'm expected. For instance, we as guys, when we are alone, we like to brag about stuff and
mm,
stupid stuff. How much more when one of us says, "Hey, I've been to therapy." What we tend to do, we make that as a joke, and we do not
mm.
take it seriously as it's supposed. We do not take the seriousness of it as we
Mm,
supposed to. So
mm,
Yeah.
goes back to the fact that this is the way we grow up, and most of these
mm,
things, usually mental illness, something that we laugh about, we make jokes about, and
I see.
if ever it's extreme, we delegate
Mm,
it to some spiritual things.
Yeah.
mm,
So
mm,
each and every so it's as much as we have gotten exposed into talking about it and all that, but
mm,
it's still early stages for us to be fully immense
Still
into,
growing.
yeah.
mm, mm. Okay,
Yeah.
a strong Black man, strong Black woman myth. Lita, how does that hurt us emotionally? Because me, I'm tired of being strong. I'm good.
Hey, I'm a marshmallow.
And so
I'm
I
soft
think
now.
what
Like I
what
can't.
what ends up happening is, I mean, if you like, that's my identity, and I think that's probably why we struggle so much to seek help, is
Mm,
because a lot of us have rooted our identity in being strong, whatever that means, because I don't necessarily think that asking for help is weakness, it's just asking for help. I love that
Yeah.
saying where someone said, you literally, that's the first thing you were able to do when you came into this world. You cried because you
mm.
needed people to help you. And that's why
Oh,
you cry
come
as a
on.
baby.
Oh, come
That
on.
is facts.
Oh, come
But it's the truth
on.
because we're such a social species. Like we're not meant to be able to do things
Alone.
by ourselves. Like if you just look
Yeah.
at it from like an evolutionary perspective, we need each other. And yet we've rooted
Yes.
our identities in being able to kind of do everything by ourselves. And I think that when you have that perspective and you now feel like, oh snap, I don't have the control that I thought I did. I don't have it together. My whole self-image is shattered because I need help. Um, and it hurts you because you either don't seek help, or even when you are seeking the help, you're not really fully in it and you don't really get better.
Mm.
And so I think what I'm gonna say is not gonna help, but kind of just get over it. And but I say this in a sense of like not from a
Yeah.
place of shame. Don't shame yourself more because it's not going to help you accept yourself at all. It's kind of just like radical acceptance, radical grace for yourself. This is where I
Yes.
am, but this is where I am and I need the help. And so I need to go get the
Yeah.
help. I think that like remove your identity from
Mm.
strength.
Don't define
Like
yourself with
exactly, because like you are whatever life calls from you at any different time. There's
at
not
any
one
moment.
static thing that you have to be all the time.
Right,
And
A
right, right.
human is nuanced.
certainly,
Mm,
exactly, and
mm,
certainly strength and seeking help are not mutually exclusive.
mm,
Mm.
It sometimes is the hardest thing to go and ask for help. So are you going to tell me that like asking for help is not an easy thing, and especially having to be so vulnerable and saying something is wrong with my mind, someone please help
Yeah.
me. I think there's a lot of strength
mm.
in that. So really maybe just shifting the perspective and the narrative would
Yeah,
help us. But like
yeah.
that I am strong identity is not
Mm.
helping anybody.
Right?
It's a lie.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Lundi, since you're saying it's a lie, right? Tell us, what do you think, or rather, what does grieving look like in the Black community, right? And this is grieving a lost, a loved, losing a loved one to death, losing a relationship, losing a job, losing a friendship, losing your possessions. What does grieving
Yeah.
look like in the Black community?
From what I've witnessed.
And also like, what are we not allowed to grieve, right? Because like if we look at death, right, you're only
Yeah.
allowed to cry within the space of the funeral preparations and during the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
funeral. Post
After that, it's
that,
like
they're,
hunger.
they're just like, oh, you're not going to be okay if you continue
Yeah.
like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you look at it from a space of a relationship, sungazukhalela indoda, sungazukhalela umuntu wesifazane.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so
Yes.
what does grieving look like in the Black community, and what exactly are we not allowed to grieve?
Where I work, is an
Mm,
office space, and there's like a lot of women, and I see them every day. I am not exempt from this. I've probably not probably I've done it countless
mm,
times. But I
mm.
think the whole idea of not showing truly, like it's like this thing came with social media, but it didn't.
Yeah,
The idea that we are not supposed to actually show our true emotions. We are not
right.
supposed to show when we fail. We are not
Mm,
supposed to
mm,
show
mm,
when things
mm,
go
mm.
wrong.
Yeah.
Like it's wrong, and it's weak to express that you are sad because of a failure. I've lied
Mm,
so many times about relationships in my life, where I'd go and
mm,
tell girlfriends and be like, oh, we had such a good time. He was such a good
mm,
man. He did so
mm,
well. He bought
mm,
me this. And it's like deep inside, what a terrible experience. But because
mm,
I need to seem a certain way, I think
mm,
our downfall is this perception that we have that we are supposed to appear not
mm,
even as perfect, that we're supposed to have it together. Like you're
mm,
supposed to, like you can't, what do you mean you're unemployed? I remember being unemployed for
mm,
like 2.5 years, and people would
mm.
be like, we are apply a lot. And I'd be like,
Hey,
what do you mean? Why would I choose to just
where
sit
would
at
I
home
not?
and why would I not apply? But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's like it's like there is this this mask that we wear that doesn't allow us to feel our actual feelings. There is this picture that we have to paint for everybody else, and sometimes there's nobody there. We are imagining the people. Most times we are imagining the people that judge us. We are imagining the people that are condemning us. We are imagining the people that are looking at us sideways. It's like we think that we are supposed to get over it, to not feel the feelings,
Yeah.
to dude, I remember judging a friend about losing her parent. And I was just like, but it's been 5 years, girl. And it's like, dude, first of all, you know nothing about that.
Yeah.
Bless the Lord. But you
Mm.
don't know anything about those emotions. You don't know how long they take. You don't know how long that healing takes.
Yeah.
I think the thing with grief is we think we are supposed to there's a time, there's a
Mm.
time limit. There's like it's enough now. You've like honestly, you've cried enough about this. Leave us alone. And it's like the human experience is so again so nuanced that you can't put a timeline to people's things and people's growth and people's feelings. And I think that's one of the biggest things that really limits our ability to feel, to process and to heal. We think that there's supposed to be a time where it's like, okay, siyabonga manje, sekwanele, you can stop now. And it's like, that's not true. You walk your journey the way that the universe designed for you to walk your journey. However long it takes you to feel, however long it takes you to cry, that is okay. I think we're just scared to seem like, yeah, but yo, you've been crying, Joe. And it's like, yeah, I'm still crying because it hurts. Must I act like it doesn't hurt? So I think that's the thing that is in our minds, that we think that there's a time to experience certain things, and it's not true. It is not true. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's time is different. In fact, time is not even a real thing if we're being honest. But that's like, woo, it's like, okay, you're trying to be woke now. But it's true. Time is in our minds, and like
Yeah.
there's no specific time to deal with anything. You do the thing
Yeah.
that works for you. So I think that's the issue mostly.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
another thing, ne, that, and this is just a human thing, right? I'm
Yeah.
Christian, ne? And
Yeah.
in Christianity, we're very big on forgiveness, right? So this whole
Yeah.
thing of
Lisa.
Luli, so this whole thing of I forgive you, but I need space. It's actually shunned
Mm.
upon in the Christian community because they say that, what if God did that to you? What if God
Mm.
said, I forgive you, but Yazina needs
What?
space, right? And you keep praying here, Gandhi, God is giving you space. That's why He's not answering your prayers.
That's
He's just
really
giving,
funny,
He needs space
though.
from you. You know what I mean? And I think that's also one of the biggest issues in the black community, right? That we are not allowed again to fail, right? Once you
Mm.
fail, once you fail, even though we may be talking to you on a daily basis, but we still haven't forgiven you for your own failure, whether you failed me
Mm.
or you failed yourself. But there's still that unforgiveness that we don't
Yeah.
have. We always say, "Oh, funupinda foot, when
Oh,
that is
it's
all
your
no."
rent.
That is it becomes your brand, right? And so
Yeah.
also it becomes like very difficult to move on emotionally. Just you as a
Mm.
person, it becomes very difficult to move on emotionally because someone
Yeah.
somewhere is going to, to remind
Yeah.
you of that. And this now,
Condemn
it
you.
for some odd reason, this conversation is making me understand the scripture that says, forgive and forget. Because if you don't forget, you are bringing the person back. You are not allowing them to
Yeah.
move forward, you know? And
Yeah.
think
You're not
about it
allowing them
like
to grow
you're
and
not allowing
change
them to
and
grow and
evolve.
change. Absolutely, and think about it
Yeah.
for yourself as well, just those little things that you do. Imagine if your parents was just like, Amber, when you used to pee on your pants, Jan. You
Yeah.
can't move
Oh.
on from that. Just forget. Forget that you did that. Let people be. You know what I mean? Okay, let's move
Yeah.
on. Let's talk about healing. Ne? What
Yeah.
was the first moment that you guys realized that, Yazin, I need healing?
Oh.
Lita, you want to go first? Oh, Londi, okay.
I am
Lita and
burning.
Kanye are deep in thought.
I'm
I'm
thinking.
burning.
I'm thinking
Burning.
as well.
I am
Yeah.
burning
You burning,
I'm
because
go
I
happy
for
don't.
it,
to
Londi.
to jump in and answer
Sure.
it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
I think firstly, like, when you look around and you're like, yo, things are dysfunctional, it is not normal for me to feel this way
Yeah.
all the time. Like, I can't be crying all the time. I can't be I can't hate my life. And
Oof.
I remember
Yeah.
there's a promise I made to myself when I first properly started dealing with my mental health issues, and it was, I don't want to put myself in positions where I wish away time. Because that's
Oof.
when I know
Mm.
that I'm not okay. If I'm like, ugh, I just want this to end. Because, like, that's not supposed, like, it's about the journey. You're supposed to want to
Mm,
do the process. Even when it's
mm,
hard sometimes, like, okay, it's hard, but I know I'm going to learn something from it. But if I'm constantly
mm,
like wishing away time, then
mm,
I know that I'm not in a good place and I need to take a step back and really reevaluate where I
mm,
am
Mm.
and like kind of what I need. I
mm,
think a
Yeah.
second thing for me is I got to a point where I was like, I'm tired of being angry because I think
mm,
that anger sometimes is such a great indicator of suppressed emotions. And anger doesn't have to be loud because
mm,
often I think with women in particular, our anger is not loud and violent
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was probably still as destructive as the as
mm,
males' anger, but it's not as, it's not as big. Um,
Yeah. It's not
it's
explosive.
it's not explosive. It's like, the small little snarky comments that you're saying to people, the
Mm.
mm,
isolating of other people and kind of like socially isolating them.
mm,
But I think I just started really observing myself and just noting what I didn't want and kind of like behaviors that I didn't want and also
mm,
feelings that I didn't want to feel. And sometimes that just
mm,
needs you to sit and be quiet and be in your body and feel the
mm,
sensations in your body. Um,
Mm.
and
Facts.
yeah, once I decided that I really I'm tired of being angry or I'm tired of the
mm,
weight
mm.
Mm.
of just like the anger and the
Yeah.
just being unhappy and kind of wishing away time, then I
Mm,
think that's when I started making the decision to
mm.
seek some
Yeah.
kind of help outside of myself.
Mm.
Sure. Londi?
So, so for as long as I can remember, my happiest memories were when I was a child and was with my grandmother. My grandmother died when I was 10. And after that, life just lived so hard. And so I was always suicidal and always
Mm,
self-harming and all the things, but I didn't have the language for it. I didn't understand what was going
mm,
on. And then I tried to go to therapy in a public hospital in Mpangeni, and that was not a good experience. So I kind of just was like, yeah, maybe it's not a thing. And then 2020
mm,
hit. I was I was working and living my dream. I had dreamed of being a TV presenter, and I worked at a community TV station and all the things, and I was still unhappy. I was still sad.
mm,
My heart was still heavy. And then I got, I guess I'll say, demoted, and I lived in Durban, and I was in a back room. And then 2020 hit, and COVID hit, and I
mm,
was alone by myself all the time to
mm,
sit with these emotions, to sit with these uncomfortable feelings, to ask the questions, to be like,
mm,
something is wrong, and I don't know exactly what's happening. And at a certain point, I think the thing that I want to lead to the most is after all the not understanding what's wrong and what's happening and why I feel the way I feel and not having the language, I knew that there's help in hospitals, right?
mhm,
So there was a hospital close to where I lived, King Edward Hospital in Durban. And that's one of the things that I preach everywhere that I go, that help is available. I ran literally to King
mm,
Edward Hospital in Durban and said, I'm scared of me.
mm,
I'm not sure how far this is gonna go, but I think I'm gonna hurt myself. So please help me. And it's one of the things that I try to preach as often as I can, to say, in the Black community, help seems so far away. It feels like one into abelungu, all of the things that we've spoken about. But also it feels like people often say, I know I need help, but I don't have money. And and the one thing in this whole conversation that I'd like to, anybody that watches this, I ran to King Edward Hospital and I told them I think I'm going to harm myself, and I got help, and I've been getting help from a public hospital for free since then. And I think that's one thing that I don't think I've heard anybody speak about before, because one, seeking help is not even a thing. And also the idea of help for free. Everybody's like, I'd rather drink, that's my therapy. My wine is my therapy. I'd rather do this. That's my therapy. And it's like, we have to speak about what's going on with us, because there are people who studied human behavior, who know why you are the way you are, who know why you feel the way you feel, why you react the way you react, why you relate to people the way you relate. And we can't figure that out on our own, because when you are in the thing, it's very hard. There's a quote by Steve, who's the Apple guy?
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. He says you can't connect the dots looking forward. It was a commencement speech. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. And it's like, you have to seek help. You have to ask somebody that's smarter than you, that knows better than you, so that you understand what's going on inside and why you behave the way you behave. I can't even remember the question, but like, I'm so passionate about the idea of people seeking help. Please ask people who know better than you do. Ask people who have knowledge about why you behave the way you behave, because all of these things that we're speaking about today can be woo-woo and be like, yeah, they just speaking because they're speaking in English. You know what I mean? And it's like, these are things we are really going through. These are things we are really experiencing. So I think being alone in that room, in the back room, and really realizing it's either I die today or I really find out what's going on. And I think I wish that people don't have to go that far, and that they know that they can seek help. Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful, guys. That's powerful. Kanye, when did you realize that something in you needed healing?
Yeah, I think for me, it's mainly certain behaviors that I've noticed. For instance, if I'm playing to people's expectations, I think that's a very good thing about the brain, the ego itself. So, and
Yes.
then you see that all of those things are not happening. So then, based on the fact that the way I behave, where I shut myself out, I just totally disconnect from anyone. Most of the time, that's when I realize, okay, I'm suffering from not achieving what people expect. So I don't want them to see me. So I rather shut myself out from them. And other things, like the way whenever I'm rude to someone, where I'm extremely rude to someone. I think most of those it's when I'm suffering from some sort of, it's maybe not that individual or someone else, but within the same setting. I'm suffering from inferiority complex, where I feel inferior. So let me try and make someone else feel inferior. So I'll be rude to him and probably just put him down to a point where he feels inferior to the way I am. And usually when I'm angry, it's where I realize I'm hurt. Maybe not that individual, it's probably someone else. And I will burst out and take it out on someone else. And most of the time it will be violent. So that's when I realized, okay, if ever I see these signs, let me check myself. Where am I standing? And am I all right? Is anything amongst this that I'm currently thinking of that's affecting the way I think? So that's the way I try to manage myself around these situations.
You know, for me, it's when I realized that I didn't allow myself to love, and I also didn't allow myself to receive love. Right? You know, like when people are being affectionate, they want to give you a hug. As soon as they give you a hug, your body freezes, like,
What are you
you
doing?
know, like what's going, what should I
Like
do? Should I
super
hug you back?
stiff.
Should I not? You become super stiff. That's when I realized that something is not okay here, hey, and it needs to be dealt with, right? So in closing, I've got two questions for you guys, right? But we'll start with the first one. What are you learning to allow yourself to feel? What are you giving yourself permission to feel currently that you've never felt before? Lita, you can go first.
No, man, I have to think.
Okay, lovely.
Okay.
Lisa doesn't give you 2 seconds.
Yes. I think I am learning to allow myself to feel anxiety. Anxiety has been demonized, and we also kind of just make it seem like it's a feeling you're not supposed to feel. Anxiety is data. Like if I go to a new workplace, obviously I'm anxious because this is a new environment, these are new people. I am obviously scared and uncomfortable, and I'm supposed to feel anxious. I used to feel like, even with depression, what made it hurt more than it probably was supposed to is that I was rejecting it. I'm not supposed to feel like this. This is wrong. This is too much. I need to fix this. I need to get rid of this. I need to heal this. All that stuff is like, let yourself feel your feelings. Oftentimes, if not all the time, it's data. It's your body communicating something. If you feel fear, and they would say back in the day, if you heard something in the forest, a sound, of course you're supposed to feel fear because it's like fight or flight, right? It's like you're supposed to either run, or if you don't, you're in danger. It's like all these emotions that we feel now because of social media and just the conversation around mental health. It's become like a crutch to be like, I'm like this because, and it cripples us and all that stuff. I'm allowing myself to feel my feelings, especially anxiety, when situations warrant for me to feel anxious. Instead of wanting to fix it, I'm like, why is it that I feel anxious? Oh, I feel anxious because I'm around people and I've been alone for a long time. And of course, I feel this way. And so that way, I'm able to regulate myself and find a place of calm instead of letting it spiral. And then now I don't even have a good time because I'm freaking out. So I think not just anxiety alone, but just feeling my emotions and saying, what is this telling me? What is my body communicating? Let me center myself around that. Let myself feel that. Exercise, do my breathing exercises, and be present and be here and allow for the reality of things to play out instead of just expecting that I'm going to just breeze through things. So I think that's what I'm allowing myself to feel, my feelings. I'm allowing myself to feel my feelings, but not sitting in them and letting them dictate the whole experience and being like, oh, okay, I'm feeling fear because there's probably somebody that intimidates me here. Why do they intimidate me? And I find that out, and then I go through that and I continue. So yeah.
That's like a very important distinction here to I'm feeling them, but I'm not gonna dwell here forever. You know,
Yeah,
at
I'm not
some
gonna
point
sit
I
here.
just at some point I'm just gonna have to keep it moving, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tiny?
Yeah.
On my side, I think I've allowed myself to be vulnerable. Uh,
Oh.
and also
Oh.
I've learned to be humble. There's this thing about being humble. You don't doubt yourself when you're hungry. Most of the time, you accept yourself as you are.
Yeah.
So that's what it has given me. And being vulnerable, it's easy for you to heal. Instead, when you talk about it, allow other people to engage with
Yeah.
you. I have this issue and I have this problem. Talking about it really helps, and you get over it quicker as compared to
Yeah.
you just walking it. So yeah, that's what
Yeah.
has been helpful for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, humility is absolutely it's a powerful thing, humility, hey?
Yes.
Very, very
Mm-hmm.
powerful. Like
Oh,
sometimes it's literally taken for granted, but it's so powerful in so many ways.
yeah.
Mm. Lisa, what are you feeling lately? What are you allowing yourself to feel?
I think for me, I've struggled so much with perfectionism and kind of just like, I have to show up in the best possible way or it's not worth showing up at all. And now I'm just like, sometimes I don't know, and that's
Mm.
okay. Sometimes I'm
Yeah.
confused, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Like I don't necessarily know what the specific emotion is, but I'm kind of letting
Mm.
go of the need to control things.
Ooh.
Because that causes a lot of anxiety. That causes a
Yes.
lot of anger. Because now I'm angry at people because why are you not controllable? Why are you not
Yeah.
behaving the
Why
way
are
you
you
Mm.
should
not
be
doing the
behaving in
thing?
my head?
Mm.
Exactly. So I think I'm just kind
Mm.
of like letting go and just letting
Mm.
life be
Mm.
and allowing myself to be in whatever state I am at that time, even if it's confused,
Mm.
even if it's like a little overwhelmed, like there's no need to have it all together all the time because even that is just
Mm.
overwhelming on its
Yeah.
on its own. And then you feel like you're failing because you
Mm.
kind of have
Yeah.
set yourself up to fail because there's no
Mm.
way you will
Mm.
be
You're gonna
able
get
to
it right.
control Earth. Like,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
But yeah, that's where I am.
Thank you for giving us the permission to. I feel like you saying that
Mm.
allows me as well to be like, because I think about it, but I'm like, somebody
Mm.
else saying it is like so validating to say
Mm.
it's okay. You
Oh,
don't have to get
it's
it
a
right all the
pleasure.
time.
Mm.
Thank you.
Mm. Mm. I had an issue, and I was talking to a colleague of mine, and he said to me, it's okay to give time. I'm like, what do you
Mm.
mean? He's like, no, sometimes you don't have to quickly solve the issue or
Yeah.
firefight all the time. Sometimes just let things be. And then out of retrospect, then you can assess what it is that you want.
Mm.
And then go
Mm,
back to the person or the situation and say, okay, you know what, this is best, and this is actually not going to work out for me, because I think most of
Mm.
the time we try to fix our emotions very quickly. I don't want to feel
Mm.
anxiety. I don't want to be confused. I don't want, so I need to
Get
fix
rid of
now.
it.
And get rid of it. And he was just like, just give time. You don't have to firefight all the time. So
Yeah.
last question as a closing remark. What does
Mm.
healing look like for you today? Not perfectly, but practically.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
does it look like for you? I don't know who to start with now because you guys are saying I'm giving you 2 seconds.
I'm happy to start this time.
Okay.
Okay. Who's
Um,
starting?
Lita,
I'm
Lita starting.
starting.
Okay, go
I
on,
think
Lisa.
for me, healing right now looks like authenticity to myself, like listening to my own internal voice. I've also come into the habit of like when there's this voice in my head, I'm like, is this my voice? Or is this the
Mm,
voice of someone else who happened to kind of brainwash me, whether it was like through childhood or through societal expectations or whatnot? But really just being authentic to myself and listening to my own voice and allowing that to dictate the kind of direction that I take, even if it doesn't suit
mm,
what the rest of the world thinks that life should be like. Because like I think often that struggle with mental health, it comes from a place of being inauthentic and
mm,
ignoring yourself. And so I'm just kind of letting myself dictate what life looks like for me, even if it doesn't suit what everyone else thinks.
I love that. Love that.
That's
Okay.
beautiful.
Londi,
Um,
what does
I think
healing look like? Not perfectly, but practically.
yes,
Yeah.
lately. healing looks like. There's a word that neuroscientists use, neuroplasticity. The idea that our brains have the ability to learn new ways. They say neurons that fire together, wire together. The idea that I'm not stuck this way, that I can that I
Love
can
it.
change, that I can rewire my brain, that the things that I feel and think and believe I can change, that I can get better, that I can be a different me from the me that I am now, that like I'm not I'm not cursed to be somebody that has bipolar. And I have this belief that like all these diagnoses that I've been given and all the medication that I take, that you know what, I can actually work my way through healing that and actually moving past that. I'm not saying this to say to people who take their medication or like have diagnosis that they should believe that it will be over. But this is what healing means to me, that I'm not stuck this way. That whatever it is that I think, because different days present different things. It's such a liberating feeling to know that I may feel this way today, but I really trust that I can work towards feeling better, feeling different, feeling healthier, feeling happier, feeling less anxious, and all of that. So I really like entertain the idea of neuroplasticity, that my brain isn't, this is not just it, that I can teach myself new ways of coping, new ways of being healthier, and it makes me feel like I'm not my diagnosis, that I'm not my mental health, that I'm not my conditions,
Yeah.
that I'm much more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Kanye?
For me, it's being content and understanding that I'm not perfect, and also forgiving myself to another
Mm,
situation where I'm blaming myself. So
mm,
yeah, that's
That
that's
is what
powerful.
healing looks like
Forgiving
today.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for today. It was so insightful. I feel healed a little bit. I feel healed a little bit. So thank you so much for taking this
Yay!
time out. Thank you so much for taking this time out, guys. Like this was it was a heavy topic, but you guys managed to not make it overly heavy where you just like, oh, now I need to go and do
Yeah,
this and do that. It was
yeah.
the way you guys brought about or spoke about, unpacking and unpeeling, or rather peeling the topic, you made it feel like it's okay to be you. Take it one day at a time, one
Yes.
step at a time.
Mm.
So thank you so much for that. Hopefully everyone that's watching learned quite a lot of things, and you are also not putting too much pressure on yourself, and you're allowing yourself to evolve, to feel, to heal. And also, like Lita said, we're not born to be by ourselves. We're born to be part of a
Yes.
community, and
Yes.
the nice thing about it is that as you grow older, you choose your community. So choose a community that is good for you, however
Yeah.
you decide to define that. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, and we'll see you next time in this lovely podcasts, thought-provoking conversations with Speak Your Truth Academy. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.